when we say the framing of Joe Paterno, I want to make something very clear. We do not believe in a literal framing of Joe Paterno. I don't believe that a group of people got together and said, it's time to finally get a hold of that bastard Joe Paterno. Let's bring him down. The media is not nearly that proficient. The media is not nearly that smart. The media is not nearly that well organized. They don't work that way. They work like a pack of jackals. I don't even know if jackals work in packs, but these are jackal packs that have no brain power whatsoever, who do whatever in their best interest at that particular moment with no thought of the future whatsoever. And so at any particular moment, if they see a shiny object that they think is going to do them good in the next 24 hours, that's what they do. And unfortunately, what happened here was that the media saw a narrative that was going in one direction for about 36 hours, and then all of a sudden turned it on its heel and went in a 180-degree other direction because they realized that was the better narrative for their ratings and for their revenue and for their own self-interest, which is fame and fortune, anything that brings a juicier story, more attention to them. That's all they care about. So we do not believe in a literal framing of Joe Paterno and a conspiracy. We believe in a figurative framing of Joe Paterno. Figuratively, he was effectively framed because of what I would call a conspiracy of self-interest, where people instinctively, a group of people, media types and politicians and then board members at Penn State, all acting in their perceived self-interest, decided that they were going to take actions that led to the framing of Joe Paterno. We commissioned a national public opinion poll, scientific, cost us a lot of money, went to a reputable polling firm to find out what people knew and what people didn't know about the Jerry Sandusky scandal. I had very low expectations for what the results were going to be because I had done the same thing after the 2008 election for my movie Media Malpractice, and that was pretty stunning, the results there, and that was about a presidential election. The ignorance here dwarfed what I found about the 2008 election. Here are some of the highlights of what we found. We found out that 45% of the American public believes that it is possible that Joe Paterno was accused of being a child molester. 45%. Only 55% of the public is confident enough to answer a true and false question about whether or not Joe Paterno was accused of being a child molester in the negative. I mean, that is astonishing. But it's because what gets reported in this day and age isn't that important. Everything gets reported somewhere on the internet, whatever. It's what gets repeated that matters. And this was repeated and repeated and repeated. The name Joe Paterno was repeated and repeated and repeated in conjunction with child sexual abuse. And so it wasn't that shocking to me, although it should be to most people, that 45% of the public thinks it's possible that Joe Paterno was a child molester. It's tragic, but not that surprising. We also tested what I call 7 pro-Paterno facts, true and false questions, that I believe the news media purposely ignored in this case because it didn't fit their narrative. And not one of those 7 questions resulted in even close to a 50% correct response rate. Again, this is true and false. If you are a monkey guessing on true and false, on average, you're going to get 50% correct. The American public did not come close to getting 50% correct on our true and false questions on 7 pro-Paterno facts that the media ignored. And that wasn't even the end of it. We looked at the Syracuse case because I wanted to see what was the recognition of the facts in the Syracuse case as opposed to the Penn State case. We asked a question, which school does this refer to? And we asked a very basic, simple question that anybody who knew the facts would immediately identify as the Syracuse case. And we made it multiple choice. 4 options: Penn State, Syracuse, Duke, and Washington. 68% of the public thought it was Penn State. Less than 1% in a multiple choice question knew that the correct answer was Syracuse. Now, this is beyond mind-blowing because it shows not just the ignorance of the American public, but just how powerful the double standard was with regard to the news media coverage of Penn State versus Syracuse. Because you could make a very strong argument that what Syracuse did and what Jim Boeheim did in that case was actually far worse than what Joe Paterno is known to have done in the Penn State case. At the very least, they are extremely parallel. And yet, no one even knows about the Syracuse case.